Welcome back to NCWLIFE channel. We continue to interview candidates that are running for election in the upcoming fall elections. Joining me right now is Chelan County Superior Court Judge Kristin Ferrera, who's looking to be retained on the bench here in Chelan County. And well, welcome to the program once again. This is our second opportunity to talk to you, Judge.
Yes, thank you for having me on.
You betcha. Let's talk about, first of all, I want to talk about how you got to where you are now. Can you walk us through that process that Governor Inslee used to appoint you to the bench?
Yes. When a Superior Court judge retires in the middle of their term, then the governor is supposed to appoint then a replacement until the next election. And the process for that, it's actually on, I believe it's the governor's website and also the State Bar Association's website, where there's a judicial application, and they invite applications, and everybody fills out the same application, and they request about 25 references. And as a part of that application process, we're also encouraged to get interviewed and screened by other minority bar associations within the state, and also the local bar association does their own bar poll and selects who they think would be their top choice, their first choice, their second choice, etc., as to this position. And then they also state whether they think the applicants are qualified or not qualified. And so
pretty extensive.
It is. And they take that into consideration. They also take into consideration the opinions of the sitting judges, and what the references are, not only the people that we worked with, but also the people that we worked against. So we have to list 10 opposing counsels, so 10 attorneys that we worked on the other side of, as another part of that process, people that they talk to, and they try to find out, who is this person? Not only what is your legal experience, are you qualified for the job, but also who is the person, what's their character and their demeanor, is this the right person for the job?
So there are different layers that you have to go through,
yes.
Apparently. Did you also have the opportunity to be interviewed by the governor himself?
I did. The first interview, so all of the candidates were interviewed by the governor's council, and that was actually 2 individuals, and those were the kind of the main interviews as a part of the screening process. And then once they went through all of the applications and they went through all the references in the interview, then they sent me as a candidate to the governor as a final interview, and he said, I have confidence that Kristin Ferrera will be the right person for the job. And
let me ask you, since now you've been in the court now, on the bench for a period of time, has it transitioned well for you, working from an attorney now to the other side of the bar? It
has, yes. That first month was definitely, I'd say, trial by fire, because I had it was the criminal calendar month. We call it the presiding month, but it's the month where you have the criminal hearings on Mondays and Wednesdays. You have the domestic violence hearings on Tuesday mornings. It's a very set schedule, and you have many cases on. I think the first day I had, I think they said over 90 cases with hearings. Now, they're very short hearings, but those were all criminal cases that I had to hear that day. And so it was a new experience, but I asked a lot of questions of the sitting judges. Judge Small and Judge Allen were extremely helpful. And I also made sure I read as much as I possibly could, and I was prepared for each case. And so after the last few months, I think it's been 6 months now, I do feel like it's been a very good transition.
Very good. Difficult, definitely, and being in a position of power like that, I suppose, is a different sensation as well, isn't it?
It is, and I definitely feel that more on some cases. There have been a couple of points where I had to make a decision that I felt the weight and authority of being a judge and how important this is, especially not only to the individuals involved in that particular case, but in the community overall. And I truly take that responsibility seriously. I'm a part of this community. I'm raising my children in this community. I want to make sure that we keep this community safe. And when we're talking about the criminal cases, that's what we're doing, is doing our best to keep the community safe.
Well, certainly we all want to know more about Judge Kristin Ferrera and your professional life, but I'm sure that a lot of our viewers might like to know you in your personal life as well.
Okay.
So again, you do have a daughter?
I have 2 daughters.
2 daughters.
I have, they're both they're 3 and 5, so very young. And I'm married, and we were married here in Wenatchee, and we're raising our children here. And before I started work here, so my entire professional career has been here in the Valley, but prior to that I went to law school at the University of Washington, and I traveled around a little bit. I lived in Beijing, China for a year.
Oh, you did?
Yes, and I also lived in Gallup, New Mexico for 2 years. I taught 5th grade there, and I also was an AmeriCorps Vista volunteer as well.
Oh, fun. So what do you like to do when you're not in court, in your fun time?
I like to run, and I like to hike. I ran the Wenatchee Half Marathon in April, and I'm hoping to run the Leavenworth Half Marathon in October if I can stay on top of the mileage. So I like to go fishing. We actually just spent yesterday fishing up at Lake Chelan.
Oh, fun.
And I like to spend time. We have dogs and pets, and so I like to spend time with them as well.
Good deal. Good deal. Again, we're talking with Kristin Ferrera, who is a judge in the Chelan County Superior Court, and she's seeking to be retained in the upcoming election. I wanted to ask you just a few related questions to your profession. As a prospective judge, what do you consider your greatest strengths?
I have a few that I think are incredibly important to being a judge. One is the ability to be fair and impartial. Walking into a case, not having predetermined ideas about what I'm going to do, but listening to both sides, and truly having the ability to do that, and also making sure every time that I review the law and understand it, as well as I think honesty and integrity are incredibly important. Having the background and knowledge that I have in the various areas of law that's been incredibly helpful, especially in the civil side, because when we have cases, we prepare as much as we can, but we have a lot of cases during the week, and so sometimes we don't have as much time as we'd like, as we do as attorneys, to prepare for these cases. Say we have a civil case that has to do with construction law. The attorneys who have been preparing that case have spent months and months on that case, and then they have to distill it into maybe an hour or a few days, depending on whether it's a hearing or a trial. And so that background and knowledge that I have in those various areas of law has really helped me as well.
Interesting. As a candidate, I know you don't like to talk about weaknesses, but are there any weaknesses that you would identify?
Well, initially, I guess I would say when I first started, I was worried about that I had less of the criminal law background. And I'll say it's now the way that attorneys work and the way the legal profession is in this community, it's going to be difficult to find an attorney that has extensive background in every single area of law that we hear as Superior Court judges. And so there's always going to be an area that somebody has less experience in. I had some criminal law experience, but I certainly didn't have as much as I would have liked. But it was an area that, like I said, I went in January and trial by fire, and I have learned so much about the process at the Superior Court level as a judge that now I don't think of it, I'm not worried about it, but it definitely initially made me nervous.
Not bad. I know that you have been involved in the establishment of a drug court here in Chelan County. In keeping with that topic, how would you characterize right now our war on drugs? Has it been effective or ineffective?
Well, that's tough to say. I will say that I know that the opiate and meth use has gone up increasingly. One of the things that we are seeing that just keeps getting worse and worse is the overdoses. In 2016, there were 65,000 people that died of drug overdoses. That's more people than died in the Vietnam War. More Americans, I guess I should say. It's significant, and so it's getting worse. And one of the things about the drug court is it's bit by bit trying to help people get to the point where they're not coming back, where they're not reusing. It's more than it's more than treatment. It's changing their life path.
And reducing recidivism.
Yes.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. What are the biggest changes you think we need to make in our justice system, Judge Ferrera?
I have noticed the one thing that, as a judge, I find I would say the most frustrating, because I don't feel like we have that the system is addressing the mental health issues that we're seeing both in criminal court and also in other areas of the court, for example, dependencies and family law. And we just don't have the laws and the setup in place to handle the mental health issues that we're seeing.
Gotcha.
And they have been increasing significantly over the last few years, and we don't have the space for people. We don't have the methods to deal with these issues as well as we would like to. So that's something that's going to need to change.
Very good. Well, Judge Ferrera, I'm going to give you the last word here on why someone should select you over someone else for Chelan County Superior Court Judge.
Thank you. I am definitely the most qualified candidate for this position. I have the background and experience that's necessary. I also have the drive to improve upon what we have, and I'm honest. I am fair. I will hear both sides, and I am dedicated. I'm a hard worker, and I'm going to make sure that every time I come into a case, I have read as much as I can, and I've read the record. I know what both parties have submitted, and I'm prepared to ask questions and then come to the right result.
That's all we can ask of a candidate.
Yes.
Thank you very much for joining us, and good luck.
Thank you very much.
I'm Steve Hare, NCWLIFE News.